Welcome to Session Sunday. Hi guys, it's Jack Edwards, and in today's video we're going to be focusing on some possession drills. But before we get into this week's video, make sure to leave us a like and subscribe, and if you missed last week's video, click on the link above. Okay, so moving into our first passing drill, okay, we're going to be focusing on obviously trying to keep possession of the ball, our receiving skills and our movements. Now, before we get into it, let's have a look at how many players we're working with this week and the equipment that we'll be using. Now, in terms of players this week, we're going to be just having 11 outfield players. So we're going to be trying to work with an odd number, okay, this week. So you can thinking of different type of session plans that you can use when you've got odd numbers. So let's say if you've got 9 or 13 or 11, like we have here. In terms of the equipment, we're going to be using balls, bibs and cones, okay? And then later on in the session, we're going to look to get some small-sided goals. If you don't have small-sided goals, you can look to use poles instead. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, the middle area in here is going to be about 15 yards because it's 2v2 with the floater. And then these areas here, okay, are going to be about 5 yards each, okay? And then the width, again, so you're going to have 5 yards for each of these and then a few yards in between each one as well. So the players in the middle, the aim is to use their players on the outside to keep possession of the ball. So you're going to have 2 teams of 5. So you've got the 5 blues, 5 reds, and then 1 yellow as the floater. So the team in possession obviously looks to use the floater to help keep the ball. It creates a 3v2 in here. So when the reds get it here, okay, they're looking to maintain possession of the ball, use the outside players, okay, and then again, can they look to get players on the ball? We can open out and then use the outside player again to keep the ball. When an outside player receives it, okay, they can play to another outside player. But once that's happened once, the ball has to come back in before going back to another outside player. And then what you're going to do to make it like a point system is every 5 passes the team gets is a point. And again, look to keep the ball moving each time. So as you can see, each team basically with the outside players is in like a triangle. Okay, so you've got 2 players on one side, okay, a little bit wider, and then 1 player more central. Now, after a set amount of time, the players on the outside can swap over with 2 players in the middle. If the floater wants to swap over as well, you can. And then what you can try and do as a progression as well is maybe cut out these areas here and the players are free to move in these areas. So obviously they can be tackled. It's 2v1 in each side. That's obviously a progression that you can do. But for now, we're going to lock the players into these areas, okay? So we can obviously find areas to play into when the ball comes in the middle to keep possession of the ball. So we're focusing again on scanning, making sure we're aware of the space around us in here. Players on the outside being able to play 1 and 2 touch to keep the tempo quite high so that we can penetrate that space in the middle of the pitch, okay, by using that overload. Keep the ball, again, we get players moving to be able to receive it, creating space for the teammates as well, making sure we're not standing still in the middle of this pitch. We don't want it being too big, okay, because if it's too big of an area in here, too much space for the players, harder for the opposition to cover ground as well, and also becomes too easy. Whereas if it's a little bit smaller, okay, the players got to think about the movement more, they've got to be more aware of the surroundings, and again, the tempo will be higher, okay, we'll be limiting our touches a lot more because we haven't got as much time and space on the ball, which means we're going to be more alert when we're receiving the ball. And like we say, after a few minutes, swap the players over in the middle with the players on the outside, and then we go again. We will now move into our first animation before moving on to part 2 of this week's session. Now moving into part 2 of this week's session, we're now moving to our second possession drill, which is going to be focusing on trying to play through the number 6 to switch play. Now in terms of the setup, we're going to have 2 15-yard boxes here, 5 yards in the middle, and then 20 yards of width, okay? And how it's going to work is you're going to have a team of 6, a team of 4, and a floater. And then after a set time, you're just going to swap some of the players over. Now the players in here are locked into their zones. So it's 2 3v2s, okay? So when they receive the ball in here, they have to play into the number 6 in here, who then opens out and switches to play, and again we do the same. So the players in the boxes here have to do 2 passes before they can then switch to play. So the 6 has got to be on the move. When the 6 receives it, we're trying to find angles to receive the ball off them, okay, to keep the ball moving. So you can say after the players in the middle win the ball back 3 times, or however, you might go just for a couple of minutes, you'll swap 2 players in this box over, 2 players in that box over, and the players will go again, and you can even swap the float over as well. And then after that, they can swap over again with the players who haven't been in going in, and players just taking turns. So they're going to get goals of obviously being the team in possession and then working without it as well. Okay, so the players in these areas here, make sure that they're not all on the same line when they're receiving this ball here. Okay, stretching, using the space, okay, so that it's more difficult for the opposition here to close down, and then you get more chance of playing that ball into number 6 who can open out and keep the ball moving. So again, can we play 1 and 2 touch football as much as we can, aware of our surroundings, focusing on our body shape when we're receiving the ball, okay? If there's no space to turn, let's go back where we come from, okay? Then we can look to open out and go the other way. So create space on one side, okay? By drawing the opposition in here, so we might receive it here, play 1, play 2, then we draw them in, then we go across there, and then we can find that pass, or we play that extra pass wide to come in here, and then when this number 6 has got the ball here, we don't want these players all in here. It's harder to get the ball and keep it. Stretch it, okay, use the space, so you spread these the defenders out more, then we look to keep the ball moving there. There's 1 pass, there's 2 pass, there's 3, okay, and then again, keep it moving, open out, and again, use that space to stretch the opposition, and then we can look to keep the ball moving and look to switch the play again. So the 6 just looks to stay on the move, okay, and provide angles to receive the ball. We will now move into our next animation before moving on to the final part of this week's session. Okay, so moving into the final part of this week's session, we're now moving to our final small-sided game, okay, which is going to be focusing on trying to switch play to then score. Now, in terms of the setup for this part of the session, we're going to have 20 yards depth in here, okay, and we're going to have 15 yards of depth in here, and then the width, again, is going to be 20 yards with players on the outside. So, in terms of how you're going to split the players, you're going to have 2 teams of 4, and then 3 floaters. So in this area here, when the team's got the ball, it's 6 versus 3, and then you've got 1 player from each team in this area here. So this way you're going to have small-sided goals, or you can just have poles instead, okay, to mark out an area where they can try and score. Now, when a team has possession of the ball, so let's say the Blues have it here, they look to use the floaters, okay, to then create chances to switch into their player here to score in the goal. And then if they score, they will keep possession of the ball. Coach will play the next ball in and the Blues keep it. So every time they score, they look to keep the ball. Now, the players in here obviously looks about a 1v1. What we don't want is the players standing in here, because if they get it here, they can't score. So we try and create some space to receive it. Lots of movement, okay, to make it difficult for the player to mark them. Players in this area here, when the floaters have got the ball, make sure we're providing angles. We don't need players coming straight into here, okay? Can we provide an angle? Okay, so then if a player drops in, we can look to bounce the ball off, okay? Use the floaters to create those triangles, okay? Then we can get players spinning off, okay? Let's say into space here. This player can receive it, okay? Get set back, and then we can look to play in to score. So again, the importance of that 1 and 2 touch play, being aware of our surroundings, okay? Our movement to receive, our movement to create space, and then the floaters on the outside, moving that ball quickly to keep the tempo nice and high. And then when the opposition team win it back, so let's say the Reds intercept it here, they look to secure the ball, get themselves into areas where they can receive the ball, okay, utilise the space that we have. Again, you use the floaters can pass to each other, okay, ball comes into here and then we score. So the player in this area in the 1v1, being strong, protecting the ball, find the goal as quickly as they can, and these players can swap over, okay, whenever they want. So every couple of minutes, these players can swap over, and then the team with the floaters will swap over with 1 team in the middle. So what will happen then is the 3 yellows here, okay, they could be non-bibs, could swap with the 3 reds in here, okay, and become the red team there, okay, and then the next time it happens, the 3 reds, we move to the outside, I can swap with the 3 blues, okay, so the players on the outside just swap over with the players in the middle, so obviously trying to keep the ball in here, okay, to find openings, to play through into this side, and then score, okay, so penetrating through after keeping possession, so creating that space, play through the opposition, okay, and then look to score. We will now move into our final animation before concluding this week's session. Thanks for watching this week's video. Don't forget to head over to our website where you can sign up to view over 900 session plans like this. And we'll see you next week for another Session Sunday.